Ladies and gentlemen, we have Daniel Cox from the poor Australia. It was a nice way how we got in contact, because we have a mutual friend, Rick Hollis, an Australian YouTuber that I met a few years back here in Germany. And he seems to, well, the rest of the story you should tell, because I don't know.
Yeah, no, he's a great guitar player too. He's one of my friends here on the Gold Coast who play, like, I met him through playing in cover bands and stuff, and he used to fill in for me sometimes when I needed him to. And then we did a gig together recently, an Eddie Van Halen tribute after he passed, which was awesome. So, but yeah, we always catch up. And before I went to Europe, I contacted him because I know that doing his YouTube channel, he has some good contacts with companies and stuff in the past, and he told me about the Bluguitar, and I was like, oh. And he said one of his mates, he's hooked up a couple of his mates, and they're playing them now. He said it'd be really great. So he got in contact with you for me, and to see if we can get a hold of one prior to coming over. But we couldn't get one in time. But you were awesome enough to help me out, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, for me, the thing was, some kind of last minute thing, because you already were flying into Europe, or you've been there, and it's like we shipped one to the first venue, and this was must have been a blind date for you, getting one of these AMP1 Iridiums. I was guessing, or maybe Rick was guessing which model was the right one for you.
Yeah, and I usually play. I was playing through a 5153 50-watt amp. So he was racking his brain with what would be the closest thing for me to jump straight into. And he gave me a couple options, and then he mentioned the Iridium. And I jumped online and checked some demos out. I think Ola did one that was really good. And I watched that, and I was like, oh yeah, this thing kicks. This is great. So I knew that it would be getting closer to what I was after than what I had available as my backline. I had, I think, a Fender Deluxe available to my exposure. There's some Marshalls that were available to me as well, but I run a 3-lead setup with my pedals, so they didn't have an effects loop. So I needed something that was able to accommodate my pedal board as well. So yeah, I mean, going in blind, but it was quite easy to set up as soon as I plugged it in. I pulled a tone pretty quickly, and I was blown away. So
yeah, cool. For me, it's kind of I just wanted to help you, because I know how it feels when you are a musician and you play gear that you're not happy with. And I mean, I didn't know if you would be happy, or I just wanted to offer the option. And of course I was confident, because I know my products are not usually, once people have plugged in, they make the experience. And I thought, this, Daniel is the right candidate. It's totally blind date, and I thought, let's see if that works out. And the result is you play the whole tour with it, and you're on board now, which is great.
Sure. Yeah, it was great. It was cool too, because it's so you can get so many tones out of it. Like, just the EQs are so, like, not temperamental, they're like very sensitive, so you change them a little bit and you can get a completely different sound. So I was like, once I tweaked it where I wanted it, different venues, it was pretty easy just to dial in for different venues as well, so it was great.
Yeah. What is your favorite channel now, or your favorite setting?
So the first half of the tour, or the first 10 shows or so, because I wanted to use the setting where you plug in just a single button or a double button so I could run the preset mode. But the pedal that I had was faulty, so it didn't work properly. So I went back to the original mode that was in the pedal, and then I used the classic channel for the first half of the tour, just switching on the boost for solos. So I used that for quite a bit, and then once I got my hands on an orange pedal switcher, which was a single button one. I changed the mode back over, and then I set the modern channel with the volume a bit hotter on the side. And then I just switched between the modern and classic. So the modern was my lead channel, and the classic was my riff channel. So
and you didn't need any clean tones?
No, so I switched over for the clean, but I only used clean for about 2 songs, an intro for a song, and then so
the rest is
so once I EQ'd it for the other sound, it was pretty much perfect for me. I think I just turned the tone right up, I think, on the side for the clean, or 3/4 of the way around.
Nice.
So
What are your settings on the classic channel? I'm curious, so I can kind of copy this on mine and see how that sounds. So
at the moment, I'm not sure if you can see it.
I can see. Okay, the bass is actually I have that already. What is the middle is a bit higher. You are on. Yeah. And the treble is okay. Got it. Okay, let me try how that sounds on my end. Yep, that makes sense. For me, I'm this Mercury guy. When I play live with my Strat, I'm always playing the Mercury. So for me, it's good to get input from Iridium players and humbucker players. This is a guitar that I have from my dear friend Alex Bayrod. We did a swap once, and I still have his guitar. He has one of mine, so I can live his world just a tiny little bit, and this is now the occasion where I can use that guitar, because this is kind of towards your direction, I guess.
It's very, very cool guitar.
What kind of guitars are you playing there? What is it? Gibson?
Yeah, it's a Gibson Les Paul Studio. 2019, I think, the 1 year that they had binding up the neck.
Yeah.
And I painted it with the Eureka flag from Australia, and
of course,
installed Zakk Wylde EMGs in it. I mainly use EMGs in this band just because they're perfect for that sort of heavy rock tone. But in all my other guitars, I've got like vintage sort of style pickups, and mainly played Les Pauls. Have other Gibsons and some Wolfgangs, and I had a nice '83 Strat, Elite Strat, I think it was, or I can't remember what it's called. It was the predecessor to the Clapton Strat. I had one of them for a while, which was nice, but I've just always been a Les Paul player, Gibson player, so got a poor Smith. That's
but in between the two worlds. But hey, fair enough. I mean, when I was doing my thing as a teenager, I was into this vintage tones, and the good Gibsons were just too expensive for me, so I stick with the Strat. Anyway, but for hard rock, a Gibson is the thing to go. For me, with a spaghetti western style sound, with Strat is not proper hard rock.
I wanted a Strat when I was first starting out. Like I really wanted a vintage Sunburst Stratocaster. That was like my my all-time guitar that I wanted. And then obviously I got into Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin, and then that was that was it for me. I wanted Les Pauls after that. So I think I got Les Paul for my 12th birthday, and then that was it. Les Pauls.
Yeah, super. And what is this thing about the Poor? I mean, the Poor, the band has been around for a quite long time, but then they kind of stopped, and then they kind of went on. Is this kind of a, what is it, reunification, or what's the story with the Poor?
Yeah, so the original lineup, like they started, I think, in the late 80s, but they were signed to Sony Records and had quite a big album. I think it was 94 in the early 90s, called Who Cares? And they toured America a few times with that. They toured America with AC/DC and Scorpions, and had a bit of success. And then they came back to Australia. They were going to record another album, and then they got dropped by the label. So then it sort of pushed them back a few years. Like they had a lineup change, got a new drummer after they were touring a bit, and then I think life got in the way for some of them, and then they sort of parted for a bit, and then they came back and released another 2 albums in the 2000s. And then their guitarist, since the beginning, recently, like he left about 5 years ago, and then they were about to go out on the tour, and then they needed to find a guitarist, and that was you. That was me. So I've been in the band for over 4 years now, but that came about because the bass player saw me perform in a covers band I was playing in at the time, and he sort of called me up to see if I was interested in playing, and went to an audition. And then because I had their album when I was a kid, so my mum I actually listened to the band and loved that album before I started playing guitar. So when I got asked if I could audition for the band, I was like, yes. So I pulled out my old record, learnt the couple songs, and then I think I played the first song through the rehearsal, and the boys were like, let's go to the pub. So I got the job straight away.
Yeah.
I've been in the band ever since, so it's been good.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a perfect match. And also, like, if you like their music before you played with them, I was also a hired gun here in Germany several times, and one band that I played with is a band from Berlin called the Rainbirds. We're talking 1993, so I'm old. But the thing is, I listened to their music before I was in the band, and then, I forgot about that whole thing. And then one day on stage, I had a deja vu. It's like, man, I dreamed that, that I would be in that band once. Like shock. Here, still get goosebumps. Like, and this was like totally crazy. But this was how things come along sometimes, and they make sense in a way. Yeah. So for me, the funny thing is, you from Australia tour Europe, and then the funny thing is, when I followed you up, like once you received the AMP somewhere in Spain, and then you ended up playing France and Switzerland and Germany, and then one day we nearly made it because I was on the way to Switzerland and you played in France, but there was just you came from Austria and I came from this way, and there was a 2-hour gap.
A couple hour difference. You're already heading down.
Past it. Yeah.
So close.
And then and then you played a few venues that I played like half a year ago, like Kulturrampe. I remember that in Krefeld and some other places. So how is it for you to tour Europe versus touring or playing in Australia?
Oh, the first time I came out to Europe was with Rose Tattoo. And then they have quite a good following over in Europe. So I was lucky enough to play some really nice rooms, which were sort of like 800 to a couple of thousand, like capacity rooms. So with really nice production. So the first tour was quite amazing, and I got to, you know, feel like what the audiences were really like, appreciation from the European audiences, and see how different they were. It depends where you go in Europe to the reactions you kind of get. Like the second tour, we went to heaps of territories we'd never been to before, and it was kind of amazing that so many people turned up, more than I expected anyways, because I thought no one would know who we are. But yeah, the people, obviously, because a lot of the stuff is new to them, so when you're playing, they're like so like watching you, and then at the end they go crazy, and it's cool. In Australia, it's kind of like, it's hard to say really, but they get into it a lot because a lot of the people that come to our shows in Australia are diehard fans, so they know the songs, so they sing along.
They know you,
But yeah, we were shocked. In Europe, we got asked for like 2 encores every show, and which it was unexpected. They just kept wanting more, which was great. In Australia, you know, you give them 1 encore, and you know they're kind of happy, or you don't even have to give them an encore. They're just sort of probably drunk and wasted by the end. But yeah, Europe, they seem to just keep wanting more and more, and yeah, they really thrive off music over there, which we love. So I just feel like they're there for the music more so, which is what I love. So,
well, for me, I have been to Australia maybe 10 times already in my life, but mainly to Sydney because I got friends there. But I've done an extension of my when I was in Australia for 6 weeks. I spent like 2 weeks in Brisbane, and you know, and also in Cairns and Townsville. You know, that Great Barrier Reef tourist thing. I admit it. I was the tourist. And I somehow kind of like the Australian way and mentality a lot, because people are first very friendly. At least that's what I experienced. Super friendly, probably friendly, maybe friendlier than Europeans in a way. I don't know, but it's because the sun is there. Everybody's open. Everybody is, you know,
laid back. Yeah, and that helps. Yeah, very easy going.
Yeah. And then when I was in Sydney, I also did a trip down to Melbourne, Wollongong. Yeah, you have all these kind of weird toka, haka, tiki toko. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I can't pronounce half the names in what was one of them? Berglingenfeld?
Okay, that would go the German names. Yeah.
Yeah, see, so I'm just the same when I go to Europe. I'm like, don't know how to pronounce these names.
Yeah. But so when I have been to Sydney, of course, I went to the, you know, some places where there was also live music. In those big cities, for me it's always a little different atmospheres. It's like more the either you have the dedicated following of your band coming to a special venue where people know what to expect, or you have functional bands that play in a bar to get people drunk, which is probably a good job in Australia, which we probably have, but not to that same extent.
Oh, okay. It's very common over here. A lot of the bands that are around
do that.
Those functional sort of bands. They play at the pub to just regular punters that are there, either playing pokies and they love to hear their covers. They love to hear the Summer of '69, like Bryan Adams songs and stuff like that. You know, the typical pub rock songs. And but when you go out on the original tours, it's much different. I think it's harder. It takes a lot longer to get
build up the audience, build up your following. It is a job. It is not like, okay, functional bands, somebody hires you because, and you will always find some work, I guess, because it's similar here. We have a network of people, bands that do that, and then they always need somebody to replace, because some guys have double bookings because they serve in that band or play in that band, and then it's like, oh, my calendar today, I'm fucked. Who am I'm calling? Maybe Thomas can do it, or Daniel. So this is the way how to get into stuff here on that scene. But yeah, for me, how do you deal with Australia being a country like a full continent? You have to travel like crazy. I mean, it's like there's one town, the next town, and then there's nothing. And then are you driving? Are you flying? Or what's the reality?
Yeah, usually we fly to most of the gigs. This last weekend we played a show in Sydney and then the Central Coast, which is around 10 or so hours away.
10 hours.
Yeah, about 10 hours drive. So we decided to road trip it down there and drive this time. So we left at like 7 a.m. in the morning, got down there at like 5:30 or 5 in the afternoon, and then rocked up, sound check, and played.
Yeah.
So yeah, we decided road trip it, but after being in Europe, I guess we were just used to it because we drove everywhere over there. So yeah, we usually try to fly. It's only a couple of hours to fly to Sydney, or 4 hours or so to fly to Melbourne. So yeah, but I mean, obviously that can get expensive because you pay for flights and then you got to pay for accommodation and stuff like that. And so that makes it difficult for a lot of bands that are trying to establish themselves. And in Australia, it's hard to, it's mainly weekend kind of thing. Like you can't go out and play on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. Well, expect to, unless you're at like the highest level. Where I found like in Europe, we're playing nearly every single night. There was only like maybe a Monday or a Tuesday that we might not play. But being able to play a tour, like we played 24 shows in 30 days. You would never really do that in Australia. That's kind of unheard of. Unless you're doing regional shows. You kind of back it up towards the weekend because people don't want to really go out midweek to watch a band, or makes it difficult.
Yeah, but it's a good thing for a band being on tour, so you have only 1 or 2 off days in a week, because if you stay there, the band costs money. There's the hotel or whatever where you stay, the food, and there's no income. And I know how it is if you have put together a production or a tour, the money just flies out. If there's not enough coming in, you're not making anything. So in that respect, we're kind of happy, or in Europe with this, so many countries and different markets and not too long distances for how many options you get.
Yeah. So I was going to say, so do you find a big change with audiences between the countries over there when you're gigging?
Yeah, sometimes, yes. I mean, I remember my functional band days when I played in Luxembourg, which is not far from where I live. We played, and there was no reaction. People were just drinking beer, having a good time, but they didn't join in. They were kind of, oh, we're here, and it could have been just a background music, just too loud because it was a real band. You know what I mean? And then when we stopped, they went totally crazy. You can't stop. We want encores. Like, hey, didn't you listen the whole night? We had no contact, kind of. Maybe you didn't show anything. That was very weird. But when I play with my own band, people come to see me, and then of course they expect that they are listening from the first note you play, which is it makes sense. It feels weird if you play for like nobody, or you feel like, is anybody listening, or what's the purpose here?
Yeah. You got to just move past that and try to just block it out and still perform this to the same level that you would otherwise.
Yeah, so cool. One more thing about Australia, just to mention, I found there are super killer guitar players coming from Australia, like Tommy Emmanuel. Why is that? My theory is maybe you have enough nice weather and you're sitting on the outside, on the beach and play the guitar all day and enjoy life doing that, while we have maybe too much rainy seasons here in Europe or whatever. I don't know. Do you have an explanation for that?
Speaking of Tommy, I saw him perform just last week up in Blues Fest up here, and he was incredible. Of course. He's an incredible Australian guitar player. Yeah, we got a lot of good guitar players coming out of Australia. But I guess from, like, we feel the same way about Europe and American guitar players. You got so many amazing players over there that, to us, I guess it's sort of like, oh, there's so many over there. How can we make it in this realm of guitar playing with all the greats overseas? But I guess because the Australian market is so tough, that to even get acknowledged as a player, you've got to kind of really put in the work and try to be different or excel in a different way. So I guess there's a lot of those people in Australia that are just sort of going full into trying to be unique or fight with other people to get where they need to. It's very tough, but yeah, I don't know. There is some great guitar players in Australia, but also in Europe and in America.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, hey, is there any like riff from the poor that you can like teach me, or us here watching?
A new one or an old one?
Or whatever. One that is cool, that you like, your favorite, or anything.
One of my early favorite riffs of the band off their first album was Dirty Money, which was just like a typical sort of
rock and roll. Yeah.
Otherwise, one of the songs that they had, which was probably their biggest hit back in the day, is like so the very just jumpy around kind of riff. Or one of the newer ones.
Yeah, mean.
Any of those, or trying. We got a very bluesy sort of style one on the latest album, which is very sort of bluesy sort of style.
But for me, of course, maybe that's a cliche now, but there might be a little bit AC/DC in that. I mean, it's just like there's riff power.
When I wrote that song, that riff, I think they just released. They might have released a new song, and I think Angus used the whole like your little
and
I was like, So I just sort of like threw the whole in there, just as like it was kind of like an Angusy thing. Yeah. I was like, I'll just throw that in there. But I guess with all the songs, yeah, I sort of piece together different, influences.
Of course, hey, of course. I mean, but and it comes up in your own way, and it's it is all cool. I mean, the other day I was watching Richie Blackmore explaining where he got the songs from. I mean, this was hilarious. It's like, there's Black Knight, and then he says, there's a song from the 50s that goes like this. There's just one note missing. So, but anyway, he can take. He was kind of making fun of himself doing that. He even said "Smoke on the Water" is a reversed version of Beethoven's Fifth. I mean, it's not, but
yeah, it's funny. When I first was trying to write stuff with the band, just as a joke, I was grabbing some of their old songs and reversing the riffs, and then just coming up with stuff that was like very completely changed. But I was just being cheeky in the way of trying to write something in reverse to what they already had to get the vibe going.
Of course, why not? So you're also now the composer in the band, or what's the chemistry in the band? How does this work? There's a singer. There's.
So yeah, we're a 4-piece, and drums, bass, and guitar, and then our singer would jump on rhythm guitar during solos and stuff. But it's generally just a front man because he jumps around like crazy on stage. So we just released a new album, High Price Deed. So most of the songs on that we started writing when I joined the band. And we re-recorded one of their old songs from their first EP and threw it on the album as well. But yeah, it's a bit of a collaboration thing. The singer and I got together and wrote the first song off the album together, and I was just there playing riffs. And then he was like, "What's that? I like that."
Yeah. And then
play that again. I was like, "Oh, okay." And that was that one I showed you before. The whole.
Yeah.
It was just like an easy little thing that I just little licks. So it was quite easy, and that was it. I was like, oh, okay. And then we sort of got in the band room and then sort of just nutted it out and came up with that song. And then the rest of the songs were sort of same sort of way. Like I'd come up with a riff, or the bass player would have something, and then we'd just work on it, or just start jamming. And most of the songs just came together like that. Our record was recorded very organically. It was kind of like that same thing. We went in the studio and all just played together.
Sure.
Laid the bed tracks down. You get a lot of these new bands that will just like play to a click, or like the song very much like this. Because I played in an original band like a few years ago, a pop rock band, and that's kind of how we did it. It was all to a click. Everything was very structured, and being able to record an album very organically, and try to get it as tight as you can, just in a room, just laying down your bed track, and that's your bed track, and that's it. You go in, you record your overdubs afterwards. So it was really cool doing that. There was one song on the album called Lies, which was sort of a blues track that we wrote just not long after I think Dusty from ZZ Top passed away. So the boys played with them, toured with them back in the day. And one of the songs on the album is very inspired kind of by ZZ Top, and it's a free just a song that's just improvised pretty much a lot of the way. I think I played the two solos in that track laying the bed tracks, so it was just fully improvised, and then we listened back and went, oh, that's it, let's keep
leave it. Keep it. Yeah.
Didn't write the solos to that song. It was very just improvised, and and see where it goes. So, you know, some of the songs were cool like that.
Yeah. Cool. I wonder what all the stickers on your guitar case are. You know, there's so many stickers on. Is this your touring guitar case?
Yeah. So it was a very clean guitar case before I went overseas this last trip.
Yeah.
And the lead singer started doing this on his guitar case the first tour. So I thought I'd do it this tour.
Deutschland. I see Deutschland. Okay. Yeah. And I see Savoy.
Yeah, which I think we played Chambéry in France. So I got that from there. Croatia, Savannah. Just the Europe one. Denmark.
Switzerland. Yeah,
Belgium,
Switzerland.
And Sweden. Some of these stickers are coming off.
Yeah, and the AMP1, yeah.
Some awesome dude that sent me an amplifier, I think.
Great.
Prague. So Rockers Australia, they're a little company in Australia that does like merchandise and stuff.
And Hamburg. I see Hamburg.
Yes.
Hamburg.
Where's the Hamburg one?
No. It's on the very bottom. This is the one. Hamburg.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
And the Prague sticker's coming off. And then I got this one on this little end, which was one of the venues we played at.
This is Belgium, Spirit of 66. I know. Yeah.
It's very cool venue. That was a good gig, actually.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Daniel. Thank you so much for sharing, you know, your world with us here a little bit. Big pleasure. Say hi to Rick when you see him again.
Will do.
Yeah. Is he living like close to you, or is it like?
Yeah, he lives like 10 minutes away.
Okay.
So he lives in the Gold Coast as well.
Yeah.
He's got a cool little setup for his YouTube channel. And
yeah. He's active. I don't know if he's coming to Germany this year or the next year, but this is where I met him, so I assume one day he will come over again. Yeah.
He wants to get his hands on your Amp X when you.
It is sitting here in the corner, and this is actually what I'm doing right after this interview with you. I'm working with a software guy on this to finish it, or to do another thing to finish it. It's so complex, but that's my call now. So, Daniel, thanks for joining in.
No worries. I look forward to hearing more about that amp too in the future. It looks like it's going to be awesome.
It is. It's even for myself. Sometimes it's unbelievable. It's like, does this really work? I mean, I have this promise that it can replicate any amp, and it's like, can it? And then I last weekend I had the amp with me again. It's not stable, the software, so I'm not using it live, but I plugged it in, and then I played and was like, fuck yeah, it really works. It's like
I actually did that the other night at one of my gigs. I took along my 5150 and the Bluguitar Iridium, and I switched between them, and it was like you couldn't tell the difference. It was very. I think the only thing that I felt that was slightly different was just the way that the air pushed through the speakers, but I think it was probably just volume. That was the only thing. But other than that, it was just like couldn't tell the difference. I had it tweaked perfectly.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel. Thanks for joining in. Stay in touch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Awesome.
Cheers.